Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to GZS Mondays. I'm Patrick. You know me. You probably also know Melanie. Melanie loves death metal. Coming at you from the Sunshine State. Is Florida the Sunshine State or is that California?
No,
Whatever.
I think Florida is considered it. Yeah.
Okay. Um, from the land of DeSantis. Um,
Don't get
Mel-
done.
Sorry.
That's for another stream. We'll do a political
Let's
stream someday.
I was talking to I went down a rabbit hole because I'm having Aaron on next week. Aaron, the metal theologian, and we went
Yeah.
down a rabbit hole talking about all the political YouTube stuff that we watch. And I was like, oh my God, like just the whole culture of watching a debate, but a guy reacting to a debate, and sometimes it inceptionizes into like 4 or 5 people like watching other stuff, and it's wild. Anyways, Melanie, how you do? Thank you for joining me. In the middle of
Yeah, I'm excited.
your day here. How is it down? Is it getting super hot down in Florida again? I used to
Yes.
live there a long time ago.
Yeah, so it is now getting hot. Usually it's like in the 70s, little lower 80s around this time of the year, but this weekend it was scorching 90s, super humid.
Mm,
So our summer might be starting a little bit sooner than anticipated. Usually it's like by the time May comes, then it's just unbearable for several months. But
yeah,
yeah,
I remember it
I
well.
I'm pretty much used to it now though. So like
That's good.
I was wearing sweatpants this weekend even though it was hot outside. So I'm officially at that point.
You're not a Florida native, or
No, I'm actually from Chicago. I was born and raised there.
oh, right on.
Um,
Okay.
and then I lived in New Haven, Connecticut for a couple of years
Mhm.
to get married to my wife because at the time marriage wasn't legal in Illinois, but it was legal in Connecticut.
Yep.
So I moved out there to be with her, and then she got transferred down to Tampa for her job, and I was able to come down and also work for my job because one of their big corporate offices was down in Tampa. So it ended up working out, and we just never left. And that was 9 years ago. And now I think we're pretty much set here because my parents retired here,
Mhm.
her parents retired here, and now my sister's moving down here this summer. So it's like I think we're pretty much just done being here now. Like we're just here. We're not going
Gotcha.
anywhere else.
Well, I mean, it's good that your parents are both there. Like
Yeah.
my stepdad is down there, and so is my sister. My sister's in Orlando, and my stepdad's in the Gainesville area. And I lived in Gainesville for 9 months. I hated it. I
Yeah, there's nothing
couldn't
there.
hang. Yeah, I mean, there's some okay stuff about that town. It's a college town. I liked
Mhm.
Tampa a lot. Like I was friends with a couple from Syracuse that moved there for a while, and I had a lot of fun there. I mean, this is 2006, I think, when I lived there, so it's quite a while ago. But yeah, I mean, do you ever see or ever go? I would imagine you go to the occasional show, right? I mean, is there still like
Yes.
death
So
metal there? Like,
yeah, so actually the Orpheum is a really like a smaller venue here that a lot of death metal bands go to. I think Suffocation was just there recently with the death tribute band that they're doing right now. I
oh
forgot what they're
yeah,
called.
Death to All, I think.
Yeah, and then they get a lot of shows. And then there's a couple of other little smaller venues in Ybor City, which is like the
Mm,
party area of
yep,
Tampa.
yep.
And then in St. Pete, Janice Live is where a lot of metal bands go to. I've seen Cannibal Corpse there a couple of times,
Mhm.
Between the Buried and Me a couple of times. I think I saw Revocation recently. Like so bands do come through here. I think the only one complaint that I have is that like the larger scale like stadium tours not as often. So like for example, I think Iron Maiden they were here not that long ago, but like it wasn't that close to me. So um
Yeah.
but like those types of things, usually Orlando gets those types of things. And sometimes I'll go out to Orlando, but that's like a 2 hour drive for me. And also, if anybody's familiar with Florida, I-4 is possibly the worst interstate to drive
Oh
on.
man, yeah, it is.
So, yeah, like just the traffic is just a nightmare. And that's simply just because the fact that Disney's there. So there's just
Mhm.
consistent traffic going in and out of there.
Yeah, nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to only a. It's weird. I lived down there for long enough, but I just didn't know what was going on, like show wise. A lot of time that I was there, I was broke. I saw Toxic Holocaust on a couple of occasions right when they were kind of starting out, and then I went to Napalm Death and Creator, and it was I think it was in St. Pete, but the show got moved at the last minute or something, and there was legitimately like 40 people there for Napalm Death and Creator in the Florida area. I'm just like, well, this is depressing. But I one of the Toxic Holocaust shows was at that place, the Brass Mug. That place is
Oh
still
yeah,
around, right?
that place. Yeah, actually, that there was just a show there recently that I almost went to, like just on the whim. But yeah, that's like really close to me, like
Oh, right on.
like 15 minutes from me. Yeah,
I know
they
that's
get
like
a
a
ton of shows too.
yeah. I was wondering. I know it's still around because there's a newish YouTuber who's like an old school New York hardcore guy that I think lives in Ocala now. This dude Tommy Rat that like goes way back to the early 80s. And I was like watching his old stories about CBGBs and stuff. And he mentioned he saw Agnostic Front there recently. So I know it's still around. And I know
Yeah,
it's like kind of like a death metal hang place. Like I think
it
Rob Barrett's
100%.
hanging out there in the
Yeah,
Cannibal Corpse documentary and stuff. So
yeah. So the Brass Mug is probably one of the bigger death metal venues. Like so them and then the Orpheum are like the two, and then there's the Ritz, Ebor. Like those are the three main venues in my area that almost always have death metal or hardcore, black metal, any type of extreme metal. And it's not usually an issue. But for like more of like the underground stuff,
hmm.
so for example, the band Maul, who recently just signed with I'm totally blanking right now. 20 Bucks Spin.
Hmm.
They were like a gurgling gore band, redefining darkness band for a
Hmm.
while. And Garrett is like super involved with like the underground death metal scene, which is how I know who he is because of like promoting those types of bands on Instagram and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, like they came through this area at like some really like small local venues and stuff like that. And it was crazy to think that like Tampa was on that like picture of that because usually it's like more local shows. So I think it's starting to get more of the underground scene back. I'm
Oh, good.
hoping. But the one thing that was really cool right before COVID, like in 2020, Gatekeeper came with Exhumed, and they played at this place called the Crowbar, which is an e-bar, and it's like this dive bar. Like it's a bar. It's not like a stadium or a concert venue or anything like that. And Gatekeeper was just coming off of Deserted, so they had a lot of momentum, and people were really like hyping them up and stuff. And Exhumed, I think they were on Horror. Was that the album that they were on? But so I expected like the place to be packed because Gatekeeper was really starting to get hyped up.
Yeah.
People were really starting to love the stuff that they were releasing, and I walked in, there was like 20 people. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be like an old school death metal show that I used to go to like when I was in high school. And
Hmm.
it stayed like that. It never got packed. And it was like the most like intimate death metal show I've ever been at. And like Exhumed came out, and they did the whole like spraying the blood splatter on everybody with
Hmm.
the chainsaw, and they had the videos of the horror movies playing, and it was just like all over us in the whole like there's only 20 of us there. Um that like those types of concerts I generally prefer than going to like the ones that are just so overpacked. But that was probably so far since I've been in this area one of my favorite like death metal shows I've been to because all the other ones have just been like Cannibal Corpse and like you expect those to be packed in this area.
Right, right. Yeah. I'm going to Carcass in next month.
Nice.
Who are they touring with? Creeping Death and
Yeah.
somebody. I'm blanking right now. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've seen Carcass plenty of times. But it is true. Like any kind of music, I genuinely like a little bit more of an intimate kind of deal, just having a background in punk and hardcore and that kind of stuff. Um, so So yeah, I always kind of stray from this, and I intend it to be like my opening thing, and whatever. I'm not really a like a natural podcaster type, but what have you been what have you been listening to lately? Like today or
Uh Phil
last couple of
Collins.
days? Phil Collins, nice, nice.
Yeah. I started a second music channel and I kind of diverted me a little bit off of some metal.
Mhm.
But I did I've been really getting into like older thrash, and I just recently did a collection update video, so I've been listening to like Assorted Heap and stuff like that a lot lately.
Super good.
Um and then I have the new Command album from 20 Bucks
Mm,
Spin that's actually being delivered today.
nice.
So I'll probably spin that for a while. And then the new Corelity, because I'm planning on hopefully doing a video on that this week. I really love that band, and their new album dropped on Profile More like 2 weeks ago, I think now. But like they released a split with Terminal Nation last year on 20 Buck, and their songs are so good. Like it's very like, what is that term that people keep calling that they hate, that crossover, not crossover, but like
Power
uh
metal.
no, it's like the term with like the crossover with death metal. Hardcore adjacent death
Oh
metal.
yeah, that's such an oblique, weird. Because hardcore adjacent, I've heard that. I first heard that term on the Axe to Grind podcast, where they're talking about like indie rock that's a little bit harder edged and played by hardcore dudes. So it could be anything. Like lots of stuff is adjacent to hardcore, you know? Like what
Right.
do you mean? So I get it's a convenient tag. I usually heard it in regards to like Fiddlehead and Angel Dust and bands like that. So weird. It's a really popular thing to say now apparently. But
Yeah,
whatever.
I think 200 Stab Wounds pretty much, and like the Maggot Stomp bands that he's been
Mhm.
releasing lately kind of has to do with that. People started using that term a little bit more. And like Creeping
Yeah.
Death is like another one. They've
Tomb
got a little more
Sentinel.
thrasher. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that that's why. But yeah, I just noticed like on Twitter and stuff, like people really they really rag on the hardcore adjacent term and like they get sick of it. And I think so Maggot Stomp, like I just love how like sarcastic Scott is from Maggot Stomp. Like he just does
Yeah.
not care. And he made like a promotional like press thing about hardcore adjacent, and it was like, if you're looking for more hardcore adjacent
Yeah.
bands, like come to Maggot Stomp. Like he totally took it and like rode with it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you gotta I think that's the best attitude to have because when we're dealing with, like, any kind of metal elitism or metal gatekeeping, which I'm not even totally against, like, I think it makes sense in some regards, but, especially when you're dealing with, like, grumpy old guard dudes that are older than me, not liking anything new, not liking anything that isn't, like, a pure, like, long hair old dude, any, like, clean cut hardcore kids that get mad when they play death metal, like, just give them the business. Like, just
Yeah.
make fun of them, like, give them a hard
Yeah.
time.
And it's funny because some of the gatekeepers like that I'm really close friends with that I've met through Instagram, like just really ragged on me for like a lot of the stuff that I would show off on my account and like would give me a hard time. And then now like we're good friends. They check out some stuff that I talk about from here from time to time. And I think like
Yeah.
there's almost like that respect that I got when I was like, hey, I'm not just somebody that only follows like new bands. Like I am very much enrooted in a lot of the older stuff and like
Mm,
and I just like recently decided my most recent collection update, like I am very much in that right now. Like the new music I'm getting kind of burnt out on trying to follow up, like keep up with new
mhm.
releases.
It's
So I
tough.
pretty much, yeah, I pretty much like keep one or two in mind per month that I want to at
Mhm,
least know to check out and listen to, and stay up to date on. And then after that, it's been like just like because before I would scour Bandcamp and just sit there
mhm.
and like I had like a running list of all these things that would be coming out and like try to listen to everything. And I can't do it anymore. Like I'm so burnt out on doing it.
The white the white belt kids, that's going back to the mid 2000s right there, like The Locust and all that stuff. Um, Real quick, just speaking of new bands, the two things I listened to mostly this week, and it was because of the Metallurgy stream recently. Um, The Majesties
Oh
full
yeah.
length. I
Oh
finally
yeah.
got that after forgetting what it was several times, like Ben telling me about it and then Mike telling me about it. I'm friends with Tanner. I'm invited to his wedding. Like, um, sorry, man. And the Inexorum cassette as well. I
I
snagged the last one.
yeah, I have
Super
that
dope
on
shit.
my like my wish list. So there's a couple of things that I've been but that Majesties is great. And
Super
I
good.
pretty much knew it would be because I'm a huge fan of Tanner and like everything that he puts out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I pretty much just there's a little bit of a bias there for that reason. But just when 20 Buck released the first like two or three singles off that, I was like, this is probably gonna just be one of my favorite albums this year. Like there was like no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's one I've been listening to quite a bit too. Like in terms of the newer releases, it's been a lot of black metal too. There's been
Mhm.
a couple black metal things that I've been listening to a lot, but like in terms of death metal, it hasn't been a whole lot. Like there's been a couple of things like I guess Ahab, but that's that's Funeral Doom.
Yeah, yeah.
That album was really good, and I still listen to that quite a bit. And then the new Reburied album that came out on Translation Loss is really good. That's pretty much just straight death metal. But yeah, there's like this on Twitter. I've recently got like really incorporated into metal Twitter. I don't really collaborate or anything like that, but I just
Mhm.
follow a couple of accounts that blast like what's coming out on Fridays and they talk about the albums. And that's just pretty much what I've been going off of now. And not trying to follow along on Instagram and stuff like that anymore because Instagram shows the physical media and that's
Mhm.
where I get in trouble with. Whereas Twitter is like, here's the
Right.
stream, listen to the album, and that's what I've been trying to like focus more on is actually listening to the music and not buying so much because I was buying so much and then not listening to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've been focusing my money in other directions, and I'm not gonna go into talking about other than just briefly mentioning I have a distro, but I've been kind of putting my money into that because it's at least kind of like, trying to focus something into like at least it comes back to me like
Yeah.
financially, you know. There's a few things here and there. Like I do go on you held up that assorted heap like once in a blue moon. I'll go on and I mentioned this before, but I'll go on a Vic Records um rabbit hole like on Amazon. I'm like I'll just type it in the search like Vic Records CD and I always think like, okay, I've got everything I can possibly get from this label. Um, I I'm I buy almost everything that they reissue like almost indiscriminately because almost everything they do I like. But I'm like, wow, oh wait, no, no, there's like 4 or 5 things that I don't have, and I believe this band was, I think they were European. I didn't bother looking this up, but this Obtruncation band, the Callous Concept. It's like late '90s, I think, and it's like it's fairly brutal stuff. Like they definitely
Mhm.
like Suffocation, but it's got like a more raw approach recording wise. It's not like modern brutal death metal, and that's really good. Been listening to that a bunch, but that's my other pick for that. But yeah, I mean, and I brought this up when I talked to Ben. I was like, yeah, like I'm kind of burnt out on new bands. Let's find old bands that we've never heard of and like spend all our money on that. Like
Yeah, and
I still have,
that's getting me in trouble now though
yeah,
because like there's been a couple of things that I've hunted for and I got them relatively cheap, but like that assorted heap was only like $10. So that was an
yeah.
Amazon find. Yeah, Vic Records I didn't realize Amazon had like those on there. But now like heavy metallurgy is really a big like pendulum for what I'm listening to sometimes.
Hmm.
So like they
Sure.
did that Saxon stream a couple weeks ago and now I'm like hunting Saxon records like OG presses for
Yeah.
it's just and it's fun. Like I enjoy doing that, but at the same time I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, here we go. I don't need to be doing this. But luckily I've been like striking out and only finding them for like $10. So it's like, okay, this is good. It's
Yeah.
like buying a CD or a tape.
Yeah. It's not that bad. Like I went through that too. I have pretty much all the, not like super obscure and NWOBHM, but the like flagship bands I tracked. I was lucky enough where like one of the record stores in Salem when I still lived there would just get randomly. I mean, they're a big like crate digger kind of place that had a lot of crap, but they would get some good stuff in and like randomly they would for a couple of months they just had like a ton of Raven, a ton of Saxon, and they were like $10 to $20 and like that stuff is like if you like metal is mandatory, so like I'm glad I already got that stuff. I'm pretty good with my own like classic metal stuff at the moment, but at any given time I could be like, "Oh, I need to dig deeper. Let's see what Aaron and Chromie have to say with like some weird shit I've never heard of." Like I'm going to need to track that down eventually or whatever. So, I feel
Yeah,
you. Yeah, it will there's always something new to check out, like it feels like.
always. And then there's that like aspect of where I really want to get all of like my favorite bands and like the discography and all the albums I love from them. And that also takes up time and looking because a lot of times it's like out of print and stuff. I know my cat is like trying to get on my lap and stuff. Sorry. um, and so like, but yeah, I've slowed down quite a bit in terms of like pre-orders. I think I only have like 2 or 3 out there right now, which is crazy because I
Mhm.
usually have like 10 at one time. Um, but like Hell Ripper was another one that came out recently. Uh, he's James McBain is like incredible musician, and just
Yeah.
writes like really good speed black thrash metal.
Mhm.
But this recent album that he put out is just, you can just tell he's really progressed a lot with the way of his songwriting is, and like he's made it a little bit more like less like aggressive speed in your face, like a little bit more variance
Mhm.
and you know, stuff like that. So that's a really good album too, and I've been playing that a lot. Like
Yeah.
that's one of those. Yeah, it's really good.
I
Um,
gotta pick that up because I just bought Coagulating Darkness, the first one, and that's
yeah,
awesome.
they just reissued that. I have to get that. It
Yeah,
keeps coming
it's
up.
actually
Yeah.
if I mean I feel I'm trying another thing. I'm trying not to support Amazon so goddamn much, um, but yeah, that's only like $12 on Amazon. The new one, and that I noticed that lately, like the new Sanguine Sugarbog, that they're all like the CDs. They're all going for like $20. I'm like,
Don't get me started. That's Century Media. That's not Amazon.
yeah, I know, I know. Well, yeah, no, I know. The Century Media. Well, for the longest time, it was like $15, which fine. You know, Peaceville, Century Media, whatever the bigger labels are, $15 for a CD. I get it. Okay, you know that's the going rate. But why? Why is it now $5 more? You know, and that's been the main thing that's kept me from buying that Hell Ripper. I know I should probably just like bite the bullet and just buy it, but like I'm considering getting it. Well, the thing is, if I want to get it on vinyl, it'll be $40. So,
So actually, Peaceville has a US store now, and that's where I got mine from, and it was only
oh yeah,
like
yeah, that's right.
$28. It was super
Okay,
cheap. Yeah. So yeah, that was one thing. Hold on one minute. I'm gonna close my door really quick because my dog is
no
barking.
problem.
I don't yeah.
I know that struggle. My my dog loses. I have two dogs. One loses her mind when like leaves blow by,
Yeah.
and the other one just like looks confused as to why she's freaking out so bad, and like
Yeah.
never ever really reacts. Like sometimes he whines a little bit, but
Yeah, I work from home, so and right now there's absolutely nobody home. Like my wife and my kids are not home yet. So
mhm,
she lays in the window all day and like sunbathes. And as soon as somebody walks by or as soon as she sees like a squirrel or something, she like loses her mind. And it's just like a
mhm.
never ending battle of me having to go out there and shush her, especially when I'm on calls for work and stuff.
Yeah, when like I don't work full like overnights, but like when I still lived in Salem, I did 3 12s, 6:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. And my dog was the bane of my existence sometimes because I would be finally asleep, you know, like it'd be 10 in the morning. I'd been asleep for like 2 hours or something, and Piper's like losing her mind. I'm like, oh my God. But anyways, dogs, am I right? So
Yeah.
usually for these sort of things, I have some requisite like uh, questions, talking points jotted down. And I believe again, like going back to a few years ago in the midst of all the height of the pandemic and quarantine stuff. I mean, me and Marty and Eric and everybody had those streams, and that was when I first met you. And I
Yeah. It
believe
was a long yeah.
that was a rough time for me. I will admit to the fact that I was on those streams very inebriated. Um, a lot of the time, the pandemic was very stressful if you're a healthcare worker. So that was me coping with that. I apologize to all parties involved. But I remember talking to you, and that was that right when you started your channel? It's been a few years
Yeah.
your channel's been
It
able
was probably
to
like a
verify.
month or two after I started my channel. Ben reached out to me
Okay.
and was like, "Hey, like we're a huge fan. We do this live stream." And I was not familiar with like anybody, almost any like I knew who Marty was, I knew who Ben was, but like Simon, Jason
Mm.
was on,
Oh yeah.
Alan, um, and like yourself, and I think there was one other person that joined that stream and I can't remember now.
Who
I was
knows?
not familiar with and I think I like went and subbed everybody and now it's like that's pretty much all I watch are like all your guys' videos. I'm a very silent lurker on YouTube though. I don't always comment on things unless I have like something sarcastic. I like to give Simon a hard time in his videos, but for the most part, I'm a silent YouTuber. Like I just watch things. I hit the like button, and then just keep scrolling. But I've told myself like this year I should make it present that like, hey, I watched your video. It was great.
Yeah, I
So
mean, that if you've been, it's crazy because I mean, it's it took me a little while to come around to like it's been over half a decade that I've been doing this. Um, so it's kind of weird. I still try to support and be part of like the greater community of people that talk about heavy metal records and punk records online. At a certain point, there is like at least the end of the honeymoon period or some kind of burnout or something that kicks in. Like, it doesn't seem like you've, at least in terms of your work ethic and how many videos you make, it doesn't seem like that's happened. But have you gotten kind of like over it at certain points or anything like that? Would you say?
Never with YouTube. The only thing that like I kind of got to a little bit to me was I did have some like normal trolls that were bothering me on YouTube, like just annoying comments and like very misogynist and stuff like that, which I knew was going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
But it got
yeah.
to the point where I was uh like, all right, I'm going to take it. Just, I think I took like the 3-week break. I think that's the longest break
Mhm.
I've ever taken on YouTube. Um, no, I get really burnt out with Instagram and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook are really tough because, and this is similar to Ken, like Ken's Death Metal Crypt. Like he had the same kind of situation where like he got tired of trying to keep up with all the conversations and the comments and people's like friend requests and like, hey, here's my demo, listen to it. Hey, let's do this collaboration. Hey, let's do this. And like it got to the point where that has burnt me out quite a bit. And
Mm,
I've pretty much like I it makes me feel like an asshole, but like I have so many like what's that Instagram thing where like if you're not following the people, it stays in the message requests. I think I have like
oh yeah,
40
yeah,
message requests right now. Like I
yeah,
got to the point where I can't accept things and like read through things, and I only talk to like my people through
yeah.
those channels right now. And then when I'm feeling a little bit more like motivated and wanting to do, maybe learn new music or try and work with somebody new, then I'll start to be a little bit more, um, you know, communicative through those channels. But for right now, that was what has made me really burnt out, and to the point of where I haven't been posting every day like I was posting a
Yeah.
picture every day on Instagram for years. I did that, and then I've stopped doing that now because the interaction just elevates so much faster on Instagram, and it got too hard to take care of that. But YouTube, I've never been burnt out. I actually have said several times, I wish I could dedicate more times to making videos because I really do like editing videos. I like just talking to a camera, and I have like a set YouTube faithful group of people that watch my
Mhm.
videos every time, and they always comment and they're always super supportive, and I like interacting with them. And like I wish I could do more live streams. Like I love doing the live streams with Marty and Alan, Heavy Metallurgy. Um, and like now I'm collaborating with you, and I think I've done a couple of other things like with Robert from um, God, what the heck is his channel now? I'm totally blanking. He does like metal reviews and stuff like that. The metal meltdown.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I watched
um,
a little bit of the beginning of the. He did the LGBTQ.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was the one that I did with him. So like I would much rather do more in YouTube. So I'm hoping I'm hoping I can someday.
yeah.
But it's tough, like especially with like the work schedule and then after work schedule, like my kids take up a crazy load of times. Like Jesus
Oh
Christ. Like
yeah, I know.
as they're getting older now, like it's insane how much I don't have time after work now to like even remotely do anything.
Yeah, I understand. I only have one child, and it's that takes. I have one child, and I work 3 days a week, and it's still like, like how do people that have to deal with more of this do this? But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I can, I'm trying to get myself in a headspace. That's why I'm putting myself on a schedule of doing this every Monday and having a stream and having a guest on. And I'm sure that's going to come up sooner or later that I can't find somebody and I'll probably just stream solo. But I hear you on the editing process. I love editing. And I've been more inspired by, because a lot of the content I've been consuming in the past like 2 years has been like a lot of like political video essayists. Like I discovered Philosophy Tube and ContraPoints and Noah Sampson and all these people that like put a shit ton of work into their videos. And definitely, I'm nowhere near on any kind of level even beginning to approach that. But I'm like, oh, I know how to clip stuff like me stuttering out of like with the Windows editor. Why don't I get a fancier editing program and like start figuring out picture in picture and all this other stuff? And like it's a lot of work, but it's very like rewarding from a creative standpoint.
Yep.
So I've been trying to and then of course, in our own community, we have chromium dioxide, and it's like, dude, like, gotta up my game here. Damn, so
Yeah, Marty, can you hear my dog howling?
Yeah.
My wife she just walked in the door, so she like does this like ruing thing when she gets excited when we come home.
Oh, what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a Shiba Inu she's only 2 years old right now. She's the loud one. And if you're familiar with the breed, they're a very interesting breed. They're very cat-like, but they're also very like independent. And they're usually not very vocal, but the one that we got is very vocal. um, and then I have a husky who actually is in here with me right now.
I
He's
love
13.
huskies.
He's an old boy. He's I got him when he was about 5 months old, and he sits in my room all day with me, and just doesn't leave at all. He's pretty much just passed out right here. And the two of them, it's funny because like, if for how old he is, you wouldn't know that he's that old because like she just makes him a puppy again. It's really fun, but yeah.
Yeah, we just a side dog talk here. Amanda had to bring Piper to the vet for a checkup today, and she's I think pretty much a pure pit. She's brindle. She's a beautiful dog. Our other dog is a pit mix. We're not sure, but we think pit mastiff. So he's this big, goofy, droopy, like funny guy. But he got so upset that she was getting to leave and he wasn't, and he cried on the floor, which I just like gave him hugs until he calmed down, and then just sulked like this, like until they came back like an hour later. But yeah, it's the best. Love having pets.
Yeah, I do too. I would have a farm with like 30 dogs if I could.
Yeah. Well, my kid loves animals, and it's turning into like a Dr. Dolittle situation here. Like we have the two dogs. We have a bearded dragon that is really cool. Is growing exponentially, it seems like. And two frogs that we caught outside named Bob and Jimmy, and a fish tank. And we go to PetSmart all the time, not just to get supplies for our multitude of pets, but also to look at other animals and stuff.
Yeah.
My kid loves animals. And he was like, "Oh, I want a kitty though." And I'm like, "Please, no more." Like, I was like, "I love cats, but like the litter box thing, I can't hang. Like, I don't want to deal with that,
Yeah, I have one cat. He's old. He's 14. He's actually in here too. He's like sitting right there. But it's easier with just one cat. That's for sure. Multiple cats, it's the litter box situation's annoying. But he's the most like chill cat. Doesn't bother anybody. Gets along with the dogs. Just sleeps all day because he's old. But yeah, my son wanted a bearded dragon because my nephew has one. And all summer last year, he was like, I want one. We were thinking about getting him one for his birthday. And I really do not want to own one. I just don't want to do the upkeep of that. I knew it was going to be us like taking care of this animal because my son's only 7. And then we kind of made like a barter or like a negotiation with him because he also really wanted a PlayStation. He's like really into video games. He's actually really good at them too. Yeah. So I told him, I was like, you can get a PlayStation 4 because PS5s are relatively hard to get still. Or the Bearded Dragon because it came out to be around the same cost. And he picked the PlayStation. So I was like, oh, thank God. Better all around.
Yeah. And well, that's another thing in my household because my better half is involved in video games and loves video games regardless, like PS5, the latest Xbox, whatever that thing's called, like, several gaming computers. Like I got a DS because I'm old. Like
Switch. I have everything. Yeah, I have I'm on a gaming laptop right now. I have a Switch. We have the PlayStation 4. I have the Xbox X. Like the Switch goes with me pretty much everywhere I go. If I'm not at home and I'm going to be like out of town or traveling or something, like I bring it with me everywhere. I bring the adapters to plug it into a TV. Like I'm such a nerd with that stuff.
Yeah, I have we am also, I mean, it was for the family, like my wife got it for the family, but I've been the only one using it. It just turned out that way. But we got a Steam Deck too. So I just like she'll be playing whatever. Right now it was the Harry Potter game, and then now it's like the new Diablo she's been playing, and I'm there playing Elder Scrolls. Like we're all like on our screens. It's ridiculous. So veering back towards YouTubing, the topic of YouTubing. So how's your new? I checked out. I took a look at your new channel. I didn't get a chance to watch any videos yet. You're 3 videos in. Um, how's that been going? How's the reaction to it been and stuff?
So ironically, very good.
Good.
I've had a lot of people message me, especially on Instagram, be like, "Are you going to make a Melanie Loves Music Instagram now and start showing off your collection?" I was like, "I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's just going to entail more work." But it's really good. I've gotten like my first video I released, I think it was a Genesis box set, like it's got over 1K views. I was like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah,
I
I saw
can't
that.
believe that. But yeah, I think I'm almost close to 200 subscribers right now, and that's pretty much been organic growth. That hasn't been. I can see like who's subscribed to my channel. It's a lot of the people from Melanie Loves Death Metal, but there's been like people just organically finding it in the search function. So that's been kind of cool. It's actually kind of exciting, but I also told myself like, chill out. I don't want to just end up making my main focus that, you know.
Mm.
So I've been pacing myself. I'll probably do like a video every other week or something over there because I think probably 80% of my collection uh, is death metal and metal.
Mhm.
And then the other 20% is like just normal classic rock, jazz, blues, you know, soft rock, I guess is what you consider Phil Collins, stuff like that. So I feel like I'll burn out quick with that channel in regards
Mm.
to stuff that I'll talk to because I don't buy a whole lot when it comes to that kind of music.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
sure.
so the collection, there won't be many like collection updates or anything like that over there. I think it's gonna just be a lot of like reviews and talking about discographies and stuff like that.
Right on. Cool. Question from the chat here. Pazuzu Analog also said hails from Brazil. What about making your own mixtape tapes? You guys like that? I just saw that, and I've been exchanging mixtapes with like my oldest friend in metal, a guy that was in my first band. And he's still like totally, you know, as much of a maniac as anybody in this chat or either of us. But this is the Cold Lake era Celtic Frost on the cover
Oh,
there.
that's funny.
And I mean, like great stuff. Bolt Thrower, Exodus, Disrupt, Manila Road, Damnation AD, Revenant, Voivod, Van Helged, which I haven't thought about that band in a while, but they're really good. So yeah, the answer is yes. Do you ever do that, Melanie? Do you make tapes or
I
anything
have
like that?
not. Since I started collecting tapes again and got the dual tape deck, I haven't done it, but I have had people send me them to me. And that's been fun to get. Like that's the type of stuff that I like when people send to me. One of my friends actually sent me, I think it was like Death Angel was one of like it's like a Death Angel bootleg and then a Slayer
Oh, nice.
bootleg on one tape. I'm not sure where he got it, but like he sent me that fairly recently. And it's funny because my tape collection is starting to be really filled with those types of tapes now with people sending to me because like that's what their hobby is that they're doing now. And I'm like, oh, this would be fun. I should start doing it. And I think it's still cheap to like buy blank tapes and stuff like that. Probably cheaper than it was back. Is it expensive again?
It's
The
not like
market's getting high.
it's not like it's exorbitant, but like I never stopped. Like it's not a novelty or like a kitschy old school thing to me. Like I've always had a double cassette deck, always made tapes. I did mix CDs for a while. And I'm not opposed to that. You know, playlists, you know, I got no problem with anything else similar to that, but I've always had a thing for cassettes. I mean, early on in the channel's history, I did like a couple GZS mixes that I sent out to people that were like 2 hours long. Something about it that I just love. But anyway, because of that, I have noticed that 5 or 6 years ago, it was like you couldn't give away blank tapes, like nobody cared. And then they've been gradually increasing, but it's not terrible yet. And I have a few things planned where I'm going to be making sort of mass producing my own little things here and there. And like buying those specific tape length kind of things isn't bad. It's not bad, but I can see it. It's a depletable resource
Mhm.
to make those. So I can see it getting real stupid real quick, but who knows?
Yeah. What I really want to do, probably like a dream job, which is funny because it's probably not a job that pays well at all, is pretty much have a radio show, like on
Oh
Giddy
yeah.
Metal or something, and just stream music and talk about it. I wish I could do that on my YouTube channel and not have to get in trouble with like the copyright stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
it's such a bummer.
but I've been thinking about making Spotify playlists based off of like new music, old music, and like certain genres and stuff like that. I just
Mm,
haven't sat down and taken the time to do it, but I think that would probably be really successful if I ended up doing stuff like that. Um,
mm.
but ultimately, I would love to just have a live stream where I just like basically it's a radio show,
I
kind of do like an underground death metal radio show. I just don't know the venue I could do that on.
Isn't it easier to do that on Twitch? Like, isn't I don't know.
Twitch is a little bit easier. So if you're not like a major, super major Twitch streamer, you kind of go under the radar for like the DMAC like thing that they have in place.
Mhm.
There is a new streaming platform called Kick. It's
Mm.
been it's from old streamers that got kicked off of Twitch for certain like terms of service issues, and I've heard that that's starting to blow up and like get more investment into it. So I've considered doing something similar like that. Like there's a couple of streamers that I watch on Twitch right now that are like guitar YouTubers, but they have a Twitch stream and they do stream music on there, and I don't think that they get in trouble with it
Yeah.
because it's a little bit more underground music.
It seems like I've heard different things. Like I've read stuff in like different Facebook groups like, oh, it sucks, I can't do this on Twitch, whatever. But then I'll see like snippets of like people that DJ on Twitch and it's all
Yeah.
copyrighted music. So I did my own actually I'm simul streaming on Twitch right now, but like I don't think anybody knows about me on
Yeah.
Twitch, so there's probably nobody watching it. Hey, some of you in chat, go turn me on Twitch so I get some kind of engagement, whatever.
Twitch is hard to grow on. It's harder to
Yeah,
grow on than YouTube.
it seems like that. I streamed on it once purely on Twitch just to do it for fun, and I just never went back and did it because it was very complicated. Like I had like an emulator going. I think I was playing Final Fantasy 1 or something really grindy and turn-based and easy, and then I actually had like a mixer that I was playing vinyl through, which was cool, except I think it was only playing in mono or something weird. Like there was some technical thing that went wrong, but I did it once and I was like, oh, that was fun, and just like never did it again. But
Yeah, I think the sort of thing I think that I would probably really do if I were on Twitch is so like there's this YouTuber who you probably are familiar with. His name is Nick Nocturnal, and he's mostly like into deathcore and metalcore stuff, but he's a phenomenal guitarist, and that's why I started watching him. So he does like live streams on Twitch, and every once in a while I'll go in and I'll watch him, and he does like the new music reviews and like he'll listen to music and talk about them, but he also plays stuff on there. I think it'd be fun to do like a stream where I break down like certain things within a song, like what they're doing, what they're using with like certain pedals and stuff like that, and like really be like really nerdy about how they compose the music because that's a big like part of my background in
mhm,
with music is playing it and composing it and stuff like that. But like it's such a niche thing to grow an
mm,
audience around that. And I
yeah,
think like 50% of the YouTubers that I follow are musicians, and like that's what they do is they play guitars and they do like covers and they make their own music and stuff like that. And like that would be fun to do, but ultimately it'd be fun to just stream like every Friday, like, hey, this music dropped today. Let's listen to this song and talk about it and really do that. I think it'd probably be a lot of fun. I should just try it sometime and see see how close it is for me to getting my channel removed.
just
But I don't really care about like the money because I don't make shit off of YouTube, so I don't care about
yeah,
like the ad revenue
same.
or anything like that. I more so just want to do it as a hobby, and I think it'd be fun, and maybe create more collaborative opportunities for me in the future.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah. Have you this is just off the dome. Have you ever thought about doing a Patreon or do you do a Patreon actually?
I did. So I did start one, and like I ended it because I wasn't uploading there. And now that I'm starting to think of all these ideas, like maybe that'll be good. But it feels weird to ask people to give me money. Like I'm still not at that point in like my
Yeah.
YouTube career to like ask people to do that. Like I'm eligible to have like subscribers and whatever those things are called where they
Super
donate
chats.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't activated them or talked about them on my channel. Like it just seems weird. Like I would much rather provide something to somebody like physically, like physical media
Mhm.
and get their money than like me as a creator. It just doesn't seem like I don't feel like I'm at that point yet. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people might think like, no, you should definitely start doing these things. But at the same time, I'm not really that's not really why I'm here. You know, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really care about that kind of stuff. So the Patreon thing felt weird to me. Like if I was providing like a lot more extra content, then maybe I would have kept it going, but I wasn't. Like I forgot about, like, Simon was the reason why I would remember it, because he would like message me like, "Hey, what's going on with Patreon? You're gonna do anything on there?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna cancel
Yeah.
this. I'm gonna stop using it."
I was I mean, for myself, not for anybody else, but personally against it for myself for a long time. But lately, I've been kind of thinking about it as a motivator to do more. But I don't think that's a good, not necessarily the greatest reason to want to create more. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. Um, it is kind of cool. Like I think it's absolutely fine when somebody's offering bonus content, and it's like, that's you get more if you do it. I've certainly I kind of like eliminated a bunch of my Patreons because I have my own little online business thing that I'm trying to focus on, and I'm trying to focus my money that way. But I was shelling out like, I want to say like 30 or 40 bucks a month between all the people I supported on Patreon. And I was happy to do it. A lot of political streamers, a lot of podcasts I like, the I still support Ben. I think Brain Smasher and
I think Ben's the
is
only
like
one I
the only
support
one I
still.
support. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, which is, and Junk Food Dinner, the podcast, I think I'm still supporting them too. But like, like I've thought about it. I've thought about like that would be cool to do that, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know, because you can always quit and not do it
yeah,
anymore. But I don't know. I feel like I'd be on the hook for something. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
yeah. There's like a moral thing with me with it. Like if I was doing reviews daily, maybe I would
Mm,
consider doing it, especially if it was a way to fund me to actually get like some physical releases and stuff like that. But like I don't need to. Like
yeah.
I'm able to buy the things when I need to, like I don't need help with anything. So it feels weird. Like it kind of feels like I'm just like panhandling for money at this point.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't really fully like talked to any other YouTubers with how they use their Patreon and how they're successful on it, because I know there's several that are. I think like Ben, I know he's got quite a few subscribers to it. And there's a couple of other, and like I go to their Patreon, and I'm like, wow, they're making like $300 a month. Like that's some good extra change that would probably just go towards a bill. To be
Yeah.
honest, like ideally, I would like to go towards buying music, but and that's why. But maybe someday, I was thinking about maybe reaching out to some people and figuring out ways to use it, but otherwise, it hasn't been something that's on my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it into. I know. Well, I don't know if that's from super chats or for what, but like I know a lot of metallurgy takes their donations and it's spent to put into better mics and stuff like that. I would love. I mean, I think my camera's okay. I just got a
Yeah,
Brio, but
that's
like
what
I'd
I
like
have.
to get like
Yeah,
a really nice like $500 or $600 camera
same.
for my stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a better mic.
So
This thing is a piece of crap. I hate this mic. I need to get a new one.
yeah, I mean, I've got the Blue Yeti, which is like, okay, that's fine. Like that works okay. I think Shoe on Head has one, she's a pretty big deal. So I'm like, all right, like I'm good with the mic anyway, but I don't have lighting. I have a ring light. Like it'd be cool to like maybe actually pay for editing software or something like that. I don't know. But I didn't even really think about buying music with it either, like really at all. Actually, it never really occurred
Yeah,
to me.
I guess you're right. I probably could maybe just figure out a way to do it so I could get more like better equipment. Like the editing software I have, I forgot what it's called. Like whatever the one that's big on Mac, the Pro Logic or whatever the heck it's
Oh
called.
yeah, yeah.
I bought that a couple of years ago. Because I was doing other stuff that wasn't for YouTube, and that's why I just like splurged and got it. It was mostly for work things. Um, but yeah, the new mic would be nice. Like I've considered getting a new mic. Like I want one of those Shure mics. I think Marty actually might have one.
I believe you're
Now that I
right. I
think
think I
about it.
noticed that the
Yeah,
last time I watched
and it
them.
and it sounds really really good. But like I have the Brio camera. It's pretty good. And certain lightings is not the best, but right now it looks to be pretty good. And like my laptop is 3 years old. It's got a 3050 like video card, which is not the most up to date one, but it's like a at the time it was like $2,000 laptop. It's not that anymore. So that's like, but yeah, I'm not there yet. Maybe
Yeah,
I told myself when I got 1,000 subscribers, I would invest more in a camera, and which I ended up doing. I bought a brand new camera and then I bought this mic. So
yeah. I mean, it's tough to keep up with. Like, it's funny because you go back and watch YouTube videos like independent content creator kind of YouTube videos from like 10 years ago, like people that are huge now, like whoever, like the Amazing Atheist or like whatever, angry video game nerd, and like the quality is like terrible.
Mhm.
But I mean, the technology just keeps on advancing, so we have to try to, even though we're the little guys, we still have to like try to keep up with it somehow, um uh so you said you're grew up in Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The greater
I was
Chicagoland area.
Yeah, I'm from the south suburbs. It was actually Chicago Ridge, so
Okay.
it's a little
um
it's
what
Chicago.
what
Um,
led you to loving death metal? Like
uh, yeah, so my brother is a lot older than I am. He's 10 years older than I am, and he is a metalhead. Him and my older cousin, my cousin played in a lot of like underground death metal bands in the Chicago area. And so I like always idolized my brother growing up. Like I was just everything that he was into, I was into. Like the types of shoes he wore, because he was really big into like wearing Jordans and stuff like that. The sports that he was interested in, and then the music that he was interested in. Like he's still to this day is a huge metalhead. And so like he would just listen to music, and I would hear it, and I would be like, oh, what is that? And like it felt like almost like bad, like I shouldn't be listening to this because I'm so much younger than him, and it's not music that my parents listen to. And just being around that pretty much is what got me into it. But my cousin actually is the reason why I went to my one of my first death metal shows, which was like a just a local bar. And I was able to go because it was an 18 plus show, which is funny because it was a bar.
mhm.
And it was like a Pantera cover band, a Cannibal Corpse cover band. It's like such a really strange show that we went
Wild.
to. And then we went to Ozfest together, like almost every year that it came there. And then that spawned out to just me going into like the more like local shows at like Double Door and like all these other little local venues, like the Metro, stuff like that in Chicago. The Riviera, I think, was the other one that I don't even know if that's even open anymore. Reggie's is the big one.
Yeah,
And
I've
like I
heard of
saw
it.
Autopsy. I've seen like I started seeing those types of bands when I was like right out of high school, and I had my own money and was able to buy stuff like that. And that's pretty much why like they would just feed me like, oh, listen to this, like here's Death's Sound of Perseverance, like listen to this. And that was like one of the first Death albums I ever heard. And it was like, okay, so you like that album? Okay, well here's Leprosy. And like they would just like feed me. My brother would just like burn CDs and tapes and stuff like that, or I would take them from his room. Sorry, Mike, if you're watching this. um, and like listening, like he had like Death, and he also had things like Biohazard, which was a lot different from Death, but like, and
Mhm.
he had Pantera, and then Tool was another one. So like he was all over the place in terms of metal, but when it came to death metal, he also had like Cannibal Corpse and Autopsy and Death and like all the big death metal bands. And like I just was drawn to the artwork on them, so I would just take them and listen to them, and then it kind of spiraled out from there.
Gotcha.
Obituary was the big one. That was like Cause of Death was probably the first like CD that I took from my brother's collection and didn't tell him, and listened to it, and then I burned my own copy because we had like a family computer with a
Mhm.
CDRW, and like
Yep.
did it in secret and didn't tell him.
Nice. I had a similar thing where like another like a formative whatever getting into music thing where my cousin, actually the funny thing is my cousin was like kind of like that for me, where he was into music, like heavy music that I kind of got into from him. But when I was getting into like Nuclear Assault and Metallica, he was still into like Jimi Hendrix and Cream, and
Mm.
somewhere in the we met in the middle somewhere. But and then eventually like I started like kind of following him around and going to like night shows, because I was going to Sunday hardcore shows, like hardcore matinees and stuff. But I definitely stole, like he just got Kill 'Em All on CD like one Christmas, and I definitely stole it from him at the Christmas party and like ran into the other room and dubbed it, like because I didn't have money because I was whatever, like 13 years old. But uh, similar kind of experience and everything. Um, and like anything of interest in Connecticut while you were there? I don't know what's going on in Connecticut these days.
I don't know. I don't think so. When I lived in Connecticut, I was really into like Between the Buried and Me, because they were coming out with new albums when I lived out there.
Mhm.
So I was super getting into the prog, and like was listening to like a lot of those proggy, more a little bit more death metal proggier bands. I never really got into the scene in Connecticut. I know that there's a really big like hardcore scene around that
Yeah,
area.
it's where
It's
Hatebreed's
like
from.
yeah, that's the band that I was thinking of.
It's like
No, when I lived in
Hatebreed.
Connecticut, I was in New Haven, so I was able to go to NYC, and anytime the Summer Slaughter tour came through, I would go. Anytime like the Mayhem Festival, when that was a thing, I
Mhm,
would go. And then I would go into New York, and like I saw like Coheed and Cambria one time
mhm.
because Between the Buried and Me was touring with them. I saw all the Summer Slaughter tours, so it was like Cannibal Corpse and Goat Horror and all of those bands on those tours. I think I've seen Cannibal Corpse like 30 times now that I think about it. That is probably like my most death metal band that I've seen live
Yeah.
with how
I
often that they tour.
I think you just if you like this kind of music and you leave the house, like, you just fall into seeing
Yeah,
Cannibal Corpse. You're like, "Oh, I tripped into a Cannibal Corpse concert." Like, just
pretty much.
I'm trying to remember, like, I saw them with I saw them once with Chris Barnes, and that was awesome. Like, I saw them on the Bleeding tour at, like, a pretty small club, and it was amazing with, like, Sinister and Cynic. And then, like, I saw them with the Misfits a bunch of times because the Misfits came back,
They tour with
um,
everybody. Like
and
it's
yeah, like,
crazy.
they toured with I know they toured with Earth Crisis at some point, and, like, yeah, I've seen them a bunch of times, like, because I used to go to the Palladium in Worcester in
Oh
Massachusetts, and
yeah,
they were
yeah. I'm
I was
familiar.
playing there, you know? I'm sure you've probably been there
I
living in
have,
Connecticut.
yeah. I've also been to what's the unit in the place in Philadelphia that's big of St. Vitus too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
I
yeah. So I like in terms of death metal shows, I'm blanking right now. I know as soon as I go off stream, I'm gonna remember all the ones that I've seen. I think most of my shows that I've seen live have been more thrash.
mm,
Like I've seen Slayer, I don't know how many times with like Anthrax, and like Anthrax is another band I've seen a ton of times. Um, and I've seen Metallica once, which was all
me
I
too.
needed to see. And unfortunately, it was not in the era of the albums that they've made. But it was still a good show. It was fun. I just went. I had the opportunity, so I went. I don't know if I would go now if I got the opportunity because I'm just really not a
I
fan of
don't
their
know.
new stuff. And even when they play the old stuff, it doesn't sound the same because James's
Yeah.
voice is so different now. It just doesn't
Ugh,
feel
yeah,
right.
I'm not a fan of the yodeling, whatever
Yeah,
he's doing now, the modern country approach.
I've seen Ozzy a lot. Ozzy Osbourne's like one of my all-time favorite musicians or artists. And with Black Sabbath, I've seen when they did like the Black Sabbath reunion stuff a long time ago. Um, but yeah, in terms of death metal, Cannibal Corpse is definitely probably one of my like top bands that I've seen a lot. And I've also seen Autopsy several times. Wish I could have seen Death. I know now my cat's meowing. Jeez, my animals are being needy today.
That's
um,
alright.
and then a lot of I've seen God, I'm blanking right now on all these bands that I've seen Suffocation several times too. Suffocation is and Nile. I've also seen those are probably like the four like favorite death metal bands of mine. Like Nile, Suffocation. So usually if it's a favorite band, I'll go and see. So yeah.
Yeah, Nile, when Nile was blowing up, like, in the late '90s, they were constantly touring, and I saw them. It's funny because I talked about that, like, I just got, like, Black Seeds of Vengeance used
Well, these
on CD for, like,
yeah.
$7, and I was like it was one of those bands that was always around that I saw live constantly, and I never owned anything by it. I don't know why. Like, they're a great band, you know? And now I'm like, oh god, I'm probably gonna go on some Nile binge soon and buy a bunch of their shit. They're always great live. Like Nile and Crisian, like in between
Crisian, yeah.
'99 and like 2002 or something like that. They were like constantly, especially like just being close to the Palladium. Like I saw them a lot, quite a few times. So um,
Yeah, Relapse just reissued a bunch of Nile, some of their like the first 3 or 4 albums by now, which are pretty much my favorites.
yeah,
And I jumped on that because I only owned them on CD, but I've always wanted them on vinyl. So that's probably like one of my all-time favorite death metal bands. I like pretty much almost all the albums that they put out. There's a couple here and there that I just don't listen to as often, but they're not
sure.
bad. But I still go back to those first several albums that they've released often. Like again, I always fall back on the classics whenever I'm getting burnt out on new stuff.
Oh yeah,
And that
yeah.
pretty much like goes the same with like Carcass. Like I'm the same way with Carcass. That's another band that I just like will listen to nonstop all the time and never get tired of anything that they put out. But yeah, I need to go to more live shows. My issue here though is that none of my friends that I have here in the Florida area are metalheads. So a lot of times I go by myself, which I don't feel bad about. Like I'm not weird about it. And I almost always end up talking to somebody, like meeting somebody at the show, and like we hang out for the show and it ends up being fine. But that's a big thing. So like if I'm just tired and not up to it, I'll talk myself out of going. Like I'll literally just sell the tickets to somebody like, hey, here you go. So if I had like a group of people, I probably would go to a lot more live shows. But for right now, I'm very picky. I'm very picky and choosy about which ones I go to. Like I know Halloween is coming here soon. They announced their tour and they're going to be coming to Tampa or no, St. Pete, I think. And like that's it. Like I know for sure I'm going to that show because I've never seen them live. So
Marty and Alan are gonna get on a plane.
Yeah, we should do like a heavy metallurgy meetup at the Halloween tour.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm Halloween mention on my channel. Wow, there we go.
You're welcome, Marty.
Yeah, I mean, is your wife have any common musical tastes? Is she into metal at all? Or
She's not into death metal. The heavy metal stuff, like if I'm listening to Iron Maiden or anything like that, like she doesn't mind it and she listens to it and like she starts to recognize it. But no, she's really into like folk music, pop music, stuff like that. So she listens to like Lizzo and like some of the newer pop artists. Um, but like she doesn't have any issues with me listening to music at all, obviously. And like if we're driving somewhere that's far away, like I'll have something on and it doesn't bother her or anything like that. But yeah, she did go to a Between the Buried and Me show when it was in New York City at whenever they were with Coheed and Cambria, like several years. She did go with me to that show. I know she had fun, but it wasn't like necessarily her thing. But she was a trooper. I almost got her to go see Iron Maiden with me in October, but she didn't do it. So, but yeah, no, she's not opposed to it or anything like that. I think if I probably like played it a little bit more loudly throughout the house, like in our living room speakers and stuff like that, maybe I could get her on board for a couple of things. But like she's into like the punk kind of stuff, like the pop punk stuff. So like Blink-182, like she was like, oh, we should go see them live. Like that's like a band that she loved when she was younger. But nothing else. Yeah.
My better half, it's funny because we will argue about music sometimes because she's just as into music as I am. I've had her on the channel once. I'm gonna have her as a guest on a Monday soon, again. But like she's really into a lot of the same stuff, but she's really into a lot of the tougher hardcore and the metallic, like kind of beatdown stuff. So it'll be like this trade-off. We're like, okay, we got to get a sitter because we're both going to this death metal show, but you're going to the Undying Prayer for Cleansing show. So I'll hang out with our kid, but I'm going to see that crust punk show next week. So you can like, there's a lot of trade-off like that. Because our tastes overlap a lot, but not completely, you know. She's a mosher. She dances way harder than I do. But anyways, do you have any like kind of influences or like inspiration in terms of like other creators or anything like that in terms of like just your videos or anything?
Yeah. So the reason why I started the collection updates is because I was watching a YouTuber. His name is The Molly Cruise Forever. His name is Nick.
Yeah.
And he's super into black metal now. Like that's pretty much all he shows off. But I liked the videos that he makes. I still watch him. Like he listens to a lot of things like that I'll never ever listen to or ever be caught dead buying because it's a lot of like the NSBM stuff now, which is fine. Yeah. But he mixes in some stuff here and there that I don't like Intestine Ballism. Like I know that he really likes them, and he's super into Motley Crue. So, so he's the reason why I kind of started the YouTube channel because I started watching the collection updates from him. And I really liked his videos. And this has been years now. He's been doing this for like 5 or 6 years. And my wife actually is the reason why she was, you should start doing that. Like you have enough to show off. People will probably watch you. And I was kind of like, okay. But now that I've been in it, I'm subscribed to like Thralls of Metal and the Metal Meltdown and like all these other different YouTubers that are doing a variety of things. And I like the more like personalized aspect of YouTube videos of like the kind of vlog style and less
Mhm.
of the review kind of stuff because I don't really find myself to be that great of a reviewer unless I'm really like listen to something a lot and I have a lot of thoughts on it. So they like do that really well. But I like what Simon has done where he's gone to the record store and like has done videos like that. And I want to do videos like that. I just have to get
Me
off my
too.
ass and go to the damn store. Like I have to go 40 minutes away to actually go to a heavy metal record store that will have what I want to see. So I want to do stuff like that. Um, so him and then Brendan Snyder is another YouTuber that I love, but it's not metal. Like he's mostly like classic rock, glam rock, like rock in general. And he's got like 13,000 CDs or something insane like that. And he goes to like the local record stores a lot and records and shows off things or like record like conventions, I don't know what they're called, and like goes there and he does like new music now, which is every Friday new releases that are coming out. And he shows like he does like unboxing every week of CDs that he's gotten and stuff like that. Like I kind of want to start doing more stuff like that. But
Mhm.
again, that requires money.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty much all been the inspiration. Like I said, ideally, like my dream for my YouTube channel would be to kind of run like my own radio style podcast style of a show where I actually am like listening to music and talking about it with people and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
I mean, I there's a couple of newer, not super new, but there's a few music related podcasts that it doesn't seem like it's that hard to do. But I've sung their praises on Instagram a few times, but there's one called First 7 Inch Club that, I mean, these guys have been doing podcasts for a while, like independent ones. And it's funny because like main guy's old podcast, I knew he was like an older hardcore dude, but I didn't know like anything else about him really because his old podcast never really talked about music. It was like they would talk about movies mostly, pop culture stuff, and review snacks. And like I never really thought of him as the context of like a music guy, but he started a new one where they're just reviewing 7 inches, like just mostly from hardcore bands, but also from there's some death metal in there, some straight up metal in there, grind and stuff. And that's really funny because there's a lot of it's called First 7 Inch Club, and they break down like one of the guys had a career in graphic design, so they break down the layouts, and he's like the guy's pretty well, in knows the layout stuff and the old software that people used in the 90s. So they're like, oh yeah, I know that font. That's the font everybody used because it was free. Blah 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 blah. So like that's like an interesting angle. I've listened to a bunch of those recently where it's like, you know, previewing new songs. I know Axe to Grind, the hardcore podcast, they have like a live in the studio segment, which is really
mhm.
cool. There's a lot you could do with that. I mean, it wouldn't be a radio show necessarily, but like a podcast, like it's
Yeah.
definitely an avenue to explore. It's really engaging content too. Like I really enjoy listening to people talk about music and then play it. I mean, it's a nice thing to take in. There's a lot of different ways you can attack it. It seems like.
Yeah. There's one YouTube show. It's with Crypticus and then Death Metal Radio is what their handles are. I think it's Schuler is the Death Metal Radio and then Pat is Crypticus. They do this show. I think it's weekly now. I might be wrong. Where it's called Megatrends and Brutality, and they
Okay,
talk
I've heard of that.
about yeah, and they talk. Well, they also had like like a symposium of sickness show with Trevor from the Black Dahlia murder right before he passed too. So that's how I know who they are. They like
Oh yeah.
they get in like a stream like this and they talk about like current trends within like brutal death metal,
Mhm.
and it touches on a lot of the underground stuff that you may not know about. And that's how I found like the band Stabbing, which is like a brutal death metal band from Texas that I just absolutely adore right now. Like just love their album that they've released. I've been obsessed with that band ever since I found them through that show. That show is fun, and that's another one that I've been watching recently and trying to like generate ideas from of what I could possibly move into.
Cool. Um, let's see. The only one, and I think we already touched on this, but hopefully it's not redundant. But what do you love about your channel? And is there anything you hate about YouTube? Just to sum up.
Um, the thing I love about my channel is honestly the like main people that come and comment every day. Like a couple of them are in the chat right now. Like Ben is always commenting in.
Yep.
Like he's
Same on
always
mine.
exposed. Yeah, he's always like that little community that I've built has been a lot of fun, because I think it's nice to see that people actually like watch the videos and they appreciate it, as well as what it had spawned into with like Marty and Alan and heavy metallurgy. That has been like my favorite thing so far, and like getting to know everybody through there, like Ben and you and Simon and like even the guys from Thralls of Metal and like all of them, like all these streams and stuff like that. And like that's been my favorite part. It's just meeting people and being able to collaborate and like grow my network in terms of that. The thing that I don't like the most is that, there's always the like the people that come in and just totally like they maybe randomly find your channel through something and like they just totally tear it apart. But it's
Yeah.
like that kind of like the gatekeepers that like get a little bit too nitpicky about like certain things that I'll say in a video, like, oh, you said this was an EP, and actually it's a demo. And it's like, okay, cool, buddy. Like, chill out. Not everybody, I'm not claiming to be an expert here. Those people drive me crazy. And I used to let it get to me in the beginning.
Yeah.
And now I just I don't even like sometimes I'll make a sarcastic comment bad, like if they get personal or an attack.
Yeah.
Like that stuff drives me crazy. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? It's not even a full length, so that's all that matters. What I'm saying right now.
Yeah. It seems like the bigger the platform, obviously, the bigger the platform, the more of a an audience that you accrue, the more of a net that pulls in dickheads, or the bigger topic. Like, I mean, my recent experience, and this is me, like I've had a handful of people be douchey throughout the 7 years, and it's like, and on a few occasions, it's been really caustic and really shitty, really toxic. And I'm like a cishet white dude, and like I can only imagine like anybody from any other walk of life, especially dealing with metalheads. Like, there's obviously like a wide swath of people that are metal fanatics that are awesome, but it's a populist form of music that it pulls in all kinds of people, and there's a lot of shitty people. But with me, I don't even know if it was necessarily metalhead types or what, but there was that big audiophile thread going around, and I was kind of hemming and hawing on it, but I was like, this will be fun. Like Simon did a great one, and I was like, I could have fun with this, and like there are a handful of people that were clearly from the audiophile thing. There is a lot of really positive people that were like, hey, I recommend this, I recommend that. But there's like one or two people that I was like, okay, I'm from the old internet, I'm from the message boards. You want to tangle, I'll troll the shit out of you. Like, I have no fear. I mean, mostly it's just delete or block people. But and I haven't dealt with that much BS from people recently at all. But on my old, which I got rid of a while ago, I had like a 3-part, like what got me into hardcore. And that's a contentious thing because people really value hardcore because it's one of those deals where it's like more than music. There's a message and like a culture behind it. Not that there isn't with metal, but like there's a lot of people that really, it's mostly with hardcore music. It's mostly like a weird purity thing where it's like anything metallic that's too metallic isn't hardcore. And I was talking about crossover shit, DRI and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, that record's not, I'm like, I'm not saying it's definitively hardcore. It got me into hardcore. But it was just like some dude who I think was European that was like just trying to school me and like old school hardcore splain me like what, like, who these bands like Wretched from Italy and Ripcord from England are. I'm like, I don't need the international hardcore 80s international hardcore starter pack, dude. Like, I know all these bands, like stuff. Yeah, that stuff it goes along with the territory, I guess. But I think that's the bane of anybody's existence. I can't imagine.
So annoying.
I can't imagine like people that part of their whole thing and part of their whole revenue. I guess it's different when you're getting paid living off of it, but like people who are dependent on like clashes with their audience and drama, and like it generates money, like all these bigger streamers like Destiny or whoever that have to just get yelled at or yell at people constantly. It just seems incredibly stressful to me.
Yeah,
So,
like, I mean, everybody knows, like, Justin Horville from Hell's Headbangers, and, like, he
oh
has a
yeah,
YouTube channel, and he's gotten a lot of growth since he started doing this, and, like, he just has some wild opinions on things, and, like, it's just such a, like, out there personality, and, like, but that's what's making his channel successful, and he knows that, so, like, that's what he's fed it around, and,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
people really let that get to them, and I'm like, "Just don't watch his videos, like, don't
right.
subscribe to him."
Well,
Like,
there's a
but, like,
term.
he's one of those,
Yeah,
though, like, he nitpicks things and gets into things about certain things, and, like, people really hold it as, like, the truth, and I'm like,
mhm.
Calm down." Like,
There,
he's just playing a role here.
right. Um, there's a term that I heard a couple times because I that's the thing is like I'm a sucker for this. Like perfectly awesome metal records that I should be listening to that I bought 2 weeks ago are gathering dust while I listen to like a Destiny drama stream for hours instead of music. But there's a term that I heard in all that in that sphere of YouTube called like content farming, where people
Yeah,
are trying to agitate people with like
yep,
shitty takes just to
that's
get more engagement.
100%.
And it's
Yeah.
like I'm fine with that when it's like politics or if it's like two streamers that are like millionaires off what they do yelling at each other. Like that's what okay, you got my attention. But like with metal and opinions on it, I'm like, dude, I do not care. There's been a few
Yeah.
times, and I like the guy. I consider him a friend, a compatriot, a coworker in a sense. But there's been a few times with Metal Mickey where I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking?" But I'm like, nope, no, no. You nice British man. I like you're a good. You've supported me. I'm fine with that opinion. It's totally fine.
I didn't know who Mickey was until he had the thing with Justin. People were commenting on
That
my
was kind of
parody.
awesome. I
Yeah, I didn't know who he was, and then when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my god, this is a thing on YouTube." Like, people actually do, like, reply videos back and forth and have, like, spats. I'm like, "That's crazy."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's been a few instances in the past, and I with that I won't mention any names or anything. With a few people that I like haven't gotten along with, or like certain videos that were like definitely made about me and my friends, but like not named specifically. Where I kind of wanted to strike back, but I'm like, nah, it's not what I do here. But yeah, like what that particular response video to Justin was really funny. Like
Yeah.
as a neutral
So
party, I very much enjoyed that.
I was a little bit nervous because I thought that I was gonna get a lot of trolls, and it has not. The reception to that was a lot more positive than I thought. Like, even him himself, like, he wrote me, he was like, "I thought it was funny." Like,
Yeah,
he didn't take
your
any
response
offense
was
to it.
really good. I
Yeah.
I
But I have gotten, like, 2 trolls from his channel, and I commented and be like, "Dude, this was a joke. Did you even watch the full video?" And they're like, "No, I didn't. I'm sorry." Like, they admitted to like, "Oh, I thought you were just going after him. I wasn't," but
much like
no.
how Justin has never listened to the Black Dahlia murder, you never watched my video.
Yeah. So, that was just a joke. I don't like that. I know that he really could fire people up on his channel. I'm just not that kind of person that gets fired about things like that. Like, I can just ignore and let it roll. Like, whatever. People have their opinions about music and stuff, like, I just don't let it ruin my day. The one thing that I don't like, though, and I have been pretty open and public on Twitter about it. So if you're able to find my Twitter, you'll see some of the conversations back and forth. Is like, I don't like when people who are working for a label that are publicly shitting on other bands and other labels, like,
No, that's
just because it's not their taste in music. I'm like, just who cares? Like, focus on your, like, your PR and you
yeah.
trying to grow your bands, like, and that stuff drives me crazy. And so I've been kind of calling out some people in the scene around that, because it doesn't do anything to,
Mhm.
like, promote anything. Like, and if anything, I think it hurts the bands that they're trying to promote, because they're not going to have anybody to tour with or not have anybody wanting to work for them. So that's the kind of stuff that I've been vocal about. But anything else, like, I've been staying away from it. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I've considered it. Like there's been times where I'm like, haven't really gotten much sub growth lately. I've kind of
Yeah.
plateaued for like years now. Like let me think. Like because there was I think maybe it was a Metal Mickey thread. It was pretty funny. It was like 10 records that suck worse than Saint Anger or something like that. And so it
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
total like hot take farm where, you know, whatever. But I was just gonna like do every single classic record ever. I was gonna be like, Rain and Blood. Guys, it's not a race, okay? What is it? This is less than a half an hour. I want my money's worth. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like whatever. Like, Ride the Lightning, sell. And people actually did say that, like when it came out, I guess, according to a few people that grew up in the Bay Area. But like, sellouts. What's up with the ballot? You know, like whatever. And like go through all these like Napalm Death scum. Like what, you know, whatever, and just like trash all these objectively perfect records to most people, you know, and that was kind of a funny idea. And then I was just kind of like, I got lazy and didn't do it. It's probably for the best because it would have just been a lot of people not getting the joke, like probably yelling slurs at me or something terrible. So
Yeah, I definitely could probably be a lot more toxic on my YouTube channel. I purposely don't do it because I worry about some crazy ass person finding out where I live and stuff like that, and like putting risk to my family. Like that's the thing of reason why I do it. I definitely could because I do thrive. Like I'm a very sarcastic, very like have a fuck off mentality, and sometimes I show that on Instagram. Like I'll take out somebody on Instagram for that reason. But I've kept it pretty neutral for the most part. I could probably really heavily lean into the political side of extreme metal too, and I've purposely stayed out of that just because I don't want to make my channel into a political channel, but I 100% could. So I've just kept it relatively away from the drama. But there's been times where I've wondered, like, if I made this video right now, how much traction it would make because of how popular these conversations are going on. But I'm just like, don't do it, don't feed into it.
Yeah, like I have, yeah, I mean, I've had like a big political evolution since I started my channel, and you know, I've gotten way more. I used to more or less just be relatively apathetic centrist. I've gotten more and more left, like the older I've gotten, which is usually it's the opposite of how it usually goes, right? And I feel like I interject little things here and there, and it's not like I'm afraid of saying them, but for one thing, like I have strong opinions about stuff, but like I'm not that good at arguing. I'll admit it. Like I'm not a very good debater. It doesn't matter how many Vosh streams I watch. Like I'm just not that good at it. And it, you know, like I'm a pretty sensitive person at the end of the day. And I've gotten in arguments in comment sections, like I think on Ben's videos and stuff. And it really bums me out. So why bring that on my own? You know, my mental health is important to me. So I just, and hats off to people that do that for a living, you know, like good for them, fighting the good fight, in my opinion. But like, I don't really, my opinions on stuff aren't going to change. Nobody's going to change my mind. So what's the point really? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that's probably been one of the more like down days that I've had on my channel where I showed off Ymir album, who's on Werewolf Records, on one of my Black Metal Mondays. Fantastic album. And somebody like took that personally and wrote me like off to the side on my Instagram and was like, hey, like Werewolf, super sketchy, like gave you the whole background of everything, which I already like knew some of it, but I never really fully dove into it because again, those things I try to not bring attention to on my channel. And like was like, as like a lesbian woman with kids, like you would think you would stray more away from these things. And I was like, what's happening here? Like, am I being like branded as somebody who's an asshole now for like one thing? So then since then, I've done a really good job of like, okay, I don't want my channel to turn into this. Like, I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. But we hashed it out in the conversation. It's totally fine now. But like some like those types of things, I just won't feed into it. I have been like tempted because like there's been a couple of things on bench channels and I've seen some stuff in Justin stuff and like a couple of other channels that I've wanted to like go in and just like indulge in the conversation. And I was like, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Not doing that anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean it is what it is. Like which is kind of like a dumb default thing to say, but there's certain things that you just can't change, and you just gotta, you know, you just gotta pursue your own happiness. Like what else can you do?
I do just wish I could just listen to the music and not think about those things. So
Yeah, I mean, I have my see, it's convenient for me, and all I'll say about this is like it's convenient for me because like I don't have that issue a lot of the time. I don't listen to enough the black it just so happens that the black metal that appeals to me doesn't have any politics
yeah.
or it's like the bind rune stuff. Um I don't have that problem. Like I had a period before, before I started doing my channel where I was like kind of trying to see what the big deal was with like Graveland and Absurd and all these bands and all this stuff. And I'm like, none of this really appeals to me. I get the Argus Lent thing. Like they have some great music. But I don't need to show that stuff off or brag about liking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there is like a lot of stuff that's like I grew up on, like it's a different sort of thing. It's also problematic or whatever, but like I grew up loving SOD and Carnivore and this kind of like right leaning crossover from New York. So I suppose that could be, considered not great, but I don't talk about that stuff so much anymore. I mean, originally the name of my channel was taken from a Carnivore song. But it's just been like, well, that's what it is, but like, that's not the same. It might be not great, but it's not the same thing as like straight up like Nazi black metal dudes either.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like, for me, for what I want to do, I don't think I'd ever show stuff like that. There's certain creators that I watch where I'm like, man, you really like NSBM, huh?
Yep.
You talk about that stuff a lot, huh? And that strikes me as kind of weird, and I'm not really a fan of it, but I'm also like not out here trying to just like get on people's cases and condemn the hell out of anybody, because it's like a lot of huffing and puffing with no real payoff other than, again, like drama and stuff. And as stated, I'm not interested in that shit at all.
Yeah. That was I didn't even know what NSBM was until I started following some people on YouTube. I was like, did that just have a swastika? What was that?
Yeah.
Like it was like I was so oblivious to it. And now I'm like, I'm more intrigued by it, like the thought surround why people are so obsessed with it. But at the same time, like not gonna even go try and figure that out. Like just let them whatever. But like some YouTubers will show some stuff, but they also show a lot of other stuff that's not that.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I mean,
whatever.
I feel like the whole lens that we view this stuff through has just been changed so much in the past 6 or 7 years, because I mean, a lot of people are a lot more touchy about it now after, the rise of the Proud Boys and all this rise of like real fascism again. So it's gotten to be a touchy subject. And I think that makes sense. But I just don't understand the fetishization with a lot of it. It's like, I just don't think a lot of it's very good music. That's really at the end of the day, I mean, there's nothing tempting about it. You know what I mean? Like and back like 10 years ago, I was like into a lot of oi, a lot of like, like street punk kind of stuff. And there was a big right-wing sect of that. And there was some of that stuff that I was like, man, I feel guilty for listening to this because I really like the music, but it's like that had catchiness to it. A lot of that NSBM that I've heard, again, aside from Argus Lent, Grand Belial's Key and all that stuff that's like a little bit more musical, it's just like I can listen to like just a Dark Throne record and it'll be a better version of this. So why bother?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, it's like that kind of inevitable NSBM conversation that comes up in the YouTube sphere like daily. Sorry to drag everybody through that again, but it crops up for a reason. Yeah, I don't know. I close on that statement, but it's pretty much all the questions I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to impart on the audience or anything?
I was actually wanting to see how your distro was going. Every time I go to buy something, it's sold out. So you must be doing well.
Thanks for asking. It's been a running theme where like I had that conversation with Ben and it just kept kind of organically coming up. I really wasn't trying to like advertise my distro, but I ended up talking about it a lot. And then last week I was talking to my friend John and it came up a few times and Ben was giving me shit in the chat about it, like calling this like a QVC for like death metal fans. anything like that. It's going well. You know, it's staying afloat. I've put a lot of money into it. I'm taking a break. I just got in a big order from Armageddon Shop because I definitely wanted to get that
Oh,
Malleus
nice.
record back in. Speaking of cool dudes that are good and
Yeah,
not
I
to be
love that
jerks,
shop.
um, playing black metal. Malleus, have you heard that record?
Yeah, yep.
It's great.
Yep.
So bunch of Armageddon stuff I just got in. I haven't put it up on the site yet, and because I'm waiting for another big order that I'm getting from Profane Existence. So that's all going to be like crust and that kind of stuff that's going up. Then after I'm a couple more things, little smaller orders, and that's it. The distro's doing well. I got more orders this week than I ever have, which isn't an exorbitant huge amount, but it's a good amount. And then my first release, I just got the invoice for that. I'm reissuing Ground Zero Records. You heard it here first, folks. Ground Zero Salem #1. I'm putting out a tape,
Oh, nice.
which is a reissue of a metallic hardcore band from Syracuse, friends of mine, obviously, from 1998, a band called Order of Deceit that were around for like a year or two. Really cool stuff. Melanie, you'll probably like it. I think like it's kind of like Human Remains.
Okay.
Human Remains, like Dillinger Escape Plan
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
meets like Cynic. Like it's metal, it's proto metalcore or like metallic hardcore, whatever you want to call it. The beginning of that kind of scene, that kind of style. But it's the guitarist and the bass player. The bass player is the guy who sent me this lovely tape, actually. Were like almost like straight up metalheads. They weren't really into hardcore at all, and it shows. There's that sort of like, again, cynic atheist kind of technicality. It's 2 songs, but it's the whole running length is like almost 20 minutes. The second song is this long epic, lots of instrumental stuff. It's really, really cool. It's a good release. And then I'm putting out another one of those reissues of an old demo, a band not to be confused with As Blood Runs Black, the
Yeah,
deathcore
I remember
band.
them. Yep.
There is a band called Blood Runs Black from Syracuse. Again, I'm going to be reissuing stuff from my old scene that I grew up loving. It's going to be another pro tape. And then I've got some other stuff in the pipeline, but short TLDR, short answer is it's going pretty good. It's going pretty good. You know, it's nothing big, but it's a lot of fun. And it's a good new way to like have a tactile sort of engagement with music, which is wonderful. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, cool. Well, looking forward to that. Yeah, every time you get something in, I go to like, I'm like, oh, it's out of stock already. Damn. Also
well,
happy, like, great. I'm glad he's getting a lot of people. That's good.
yeah. Well, I mean, if there's anything you're looking for specifically, like let me know. You know, there's a few people like my buddy Mario down in Costa Rica who I used to trade tapes with, and a few other people that are like, oh, are you going to get this in? Can you get this in? Like, I do keep that in mind when I'm doing orders and stuff like that. So let me know.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody hanging out and watching. We got Eric here. We got Ben and G, his salty New England self up there freezing, hopefully not freezing too bad up in Maine. Yeah, Magic 69, Pazuzu Analog, a lot of names that I recognize from.
Yep.
I've also been very fortunate to have like a cool community of like a nice group of folks that always engage with my content, no matter how sporadic it gets sometimes. So I really appreciate that, everyone. But I'll let you get back to your day. Hopefully, you know, it doesn't get too melty down there. And go pet your dog, hang out with the dog. I'll go pet my dog.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go back to work.
Yeah, well, that part of the game, part of life's game. But yeah, and let me know and hit me up sometime. Well, if you feel like it, we could trade mixtapes or something. That'd be fun. I'm always down
awesome. For sure.
Cool. All right, let me end the broadcast here. My mouse is not working. There we go. I love this. You hit end broadcast and then it just thinks for a second and gives you the option to do it again. It's always so awkward. Everybody, thanks for watching.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Take care.